Everyone from Dallas, Texas this week. I'm here visiting my children. My daughter and her husband live here in Dallas, and my son and his wife live here in Dallas as well. So we're spending some time down here just chatting with them. This is MSOM 602, Lesson 6 review and final week. Yay! Final week, week 7 preview. I always say this, and it's kind of goofy, but this always seems shorter for me than I'm sure it does for you all. But it seems like this week, these 7 weeks have just flown by. So again, probably my opinion, not yours. So I want to talk a little bit about Lesson 6 this week, and then also preview the final week activities for Lesson 7. The discussion question 1 this week, we had 2 discussion questions this week, talked about exemplar leaders, and there are several examples about that. And I also talked, it kind of ties in last week with last week's leadership point of view, and those people, whether they become an exemplar or not, I mean, maybe it's the same person, but again, focusing on different activities in your life. So there may be people who are that leadership example, if you will, that you have worked with and provided over time. There are research articles. I actually read one recently on Ronald Reagan being leadership exemplar, but there are course projects that I've seen on the internet, quite frankly, on leadership exemplar examples. So it'd be interesting as we get to take a look at those this week, to look at your discussion questions, your discussion comments on that one in particular. The second question talked about situational leadership and self-leadership. And as I mentioned previously, I would really love to teach a course on this one, because situational leadership is something Ken Blanchard wrote a book on it. He's sort of an expert in that area. I like that simply because it's such a critical need today as we try and homogenize so much stuff and just shoot for the middle. We have one application that we think applies to everyone, and we all know that's not true. I mean, there are different situations, there are different people, and we have to respond to them differently. But in this world of being politically correct with the U.S. and these areas, it makes it much more difficult to be and exhibit leadership in different situations differently. I think I mentioned this before, but one of the things that we try to do with customers, everyone used to talk about being fair and equal. Well, I like the idea of being fair and equitable versus fair and equal. Think about that one. I may actually change next time the discussion question to talk about the difference between being fair and equal and being fair and equitable. Again, think about that one for a bit. That's the second discussion question this week. And then the case study was really one, I really wanted you to dig deeply on this one, because it really talks about the value of servant leadership in the global economy and the local economy. I mean, why in the world are we even talking about this? And so I hope that as you looked at those things, you began to understand that there is a significant value both for you, for employees, for organizations, for individuals in servant leadership. And this just over the last 6 weeks has not been an exercise in futility, just to say that you finished a course on servant leadership. There is value there, and I'll be interested to see your comments on the case study on that one. Okay, so that was Lesson 6. We're now into the final week. This will be a rather light week for you. The first one is kind of a funny video. Sorry about the quality on that one, and perhaps some of you have seen this one before, but it talks about being the first follower. So it's almost like, can you be a leader if you don't have any followers, you know? And so it talks about the importance of cultivating followers. And so the video there is really hilarious, and but it has a deeper message to it. So that is the discussion question this week. Then the case study talks about Jesus as servant leader. And if you think about Jesus as servant leader, Jesus really cultivated followers. You think about the disciples that he had, and so really the discussion question, the case study, kind of dovetail off each other this week, because the ability for Christ to develop the followers that he had was incredibly important, because he knew that he was going to die And his message could not go on without the impact of cultivating those followers. So that's an important component of servant leadership, and it actually ties in with the course project, the final submission that you have this week. Remember, in part 2, you had 3 of the servant leadership characteristics. Now you need to put the remaining 7. You talk about Jesus' example as servant leader in those as well. And so there are just many components of that need to be added in for the third part of your course project. Now, before you submit that this week, I would encourage you to take a look at my prior comments from the part 2 of your servant leadership course project. If you don't understand what I was talking about in there, please contact me because, as I mentioned before, the total course project is worth 40% of your grade. The outline in week 2 was worth 5%. The first part of your course project was worth, the second part, the narrative on that in lesson 4 was worth 15%. And this final submission is worth 20% of your total grade. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to look over the entire course project, paying particular attention to part 3, but I will look over part 2 and the other components. No need, listen to me on this one, no need to send me the outline again. I still had some students send me the outline from last time. Don't need that. That's just for your own benefit. I made a few comments on form and flow last time that hopefully you found helpful as well. Well, again, for me, this has been a flash, and I've really enjoyed the time that we've spent here, and look forward to those of you who don't have, just so you know, and this could frighten you, but for those of you who are going into concentrations, you won't have me again in another class unless you have not taken 601. Then you'll have me in 601. But for those of you who do not have a concentration and just do the normal MSOM, the regular MSOM course, I actually teach the capstone, which is the final course in the program for those. So if I don't see you in 601 shortly, I will see those people again in 612. For those of you who have concentrations and have taken 601 already, now that you're all confused, best wishes on your studies going forward. I always make this offer to folks: if there's anything that I can ever do for you, you have my cell phone number on the syllabus. You have my email address, so make sure you contact me. Some of the best times that I've had in teaching have really been about the times after a student leaves a course and we can talk about opportunities, ideas. I actually helped one student set up a nonprofit before. And so I just love staying connected throughout this. And so please, if there's anything that you believe I may be able to help you with as you go forward in your career, in future courses or whatever, just reach out and contact me. I'd love to do that. Okay? Well, wonderful. You all have a great week, and look forward to reading your final stuff here coming up. All right? Take care.